Almost a decade before Neil Armstrong took humanity's, the American Air Force had a wild plan for Earth's natural satellite. War. The United States and the Soviet Union tried to position themselves as world leaders, military and technological prowess. This geopolitical conflict dragged on. In 1957, the Soviets launched the first satellites in history, and Americans fell behind in the space race. The Communists. The United States assembled a team of their best scientists, including Carl Sagan. The mission of this collective of geniuses: how to blow up the moon. Project A119's original purpose. The single goal was to show the world, especially the Soviets, could achieve something ambitiously spectacular through a giant mushroom cloud. Had the project come to fruition, Apollo 11 wouldn't ever have happened, and history would be drastically different. Although the concept of demolishing the moon and downright crazy, all ideas were considered during the Cold War. Late 1950s, feelings of paranoia and distrust ran rife. Between the US and its arch-nemesis, the USSR, was one of the battlefronts in the war for... On October 4th, 1957, the public was surprised when the USSR had successfully launched the world's first ever satellite, Sputnik. Only Sputnik 2 was also launched into Earth's orbit. Dr. Vince Houghton, National Spy Museum, described the moment as such, quote, "The Americans, a concept that, potentially, the Soviets had beaten us at our own game. It's in science and technology, the people who invented new and innovative things. The Soviets had beaten us into space. The ball now. The country needed to reclaim its authority and demonstrate that its technology was the communists. They needed a symbol, as big and fast as possible." Same year, Edward Teller, the inventor of the hydrogen bomb, wrote a project about... He proposed detonating at least one bomb on the moon, and another one on the lunar surface after the eruptions. He wasn't the first scientist. By the end of 1957, there were rumors that the Soviets were considering it too. A sensationalist piece in the Pittsburgh Press reported, quote, "The latest rumor goes plan to explode a rocket-borne H-bomb on the moon on or about November 7th. Look out. The rocket and its cargo of violence are more likely than not." In 1958, the Air Force began assembling a team. Its plan would be plausible. From the Air Force's perspective, the explosion would... 1. The blast's effects would be measured by scientists who would learn more about them. The other, perhaps even more important, a giant would be visible to the whole world. This would undoubtedly serve as a show. Dr. Leonard Rifle was approached by the Air Force to lead the project. He already held senior positions at NASA and was a close co-worker of Nobel Award winner Enrico, the world-renowned scientists. Rifle was intrigued and fascinated, but even though the moon wasn't his area of expertise. In a 2000 interview with The Observer, the Air Force wanted a mushroom cloud so large it would be visible from Earth, lagging behind in the space race. The explosion would obviously be best on the dark side of the moon, so that if the bomb exploded on the edge of the moon, the mushroom cloud would be illuminated by the sun. To know everything there was to learn about the moon, Rifle recruited Gerard Kuiper, a planetary scientist and selenographer. One of the last men to be hired was Sagan. His job was to accurately model the expansion of the dust cloud that would be through the explosion on the moon's surface. The Air Force needed to know how big and visible Almost a year and a half later, in the summer of 1959, A119 was presented to the Air Force in a report named A Study of Lunar Research Flight. An atomic bomb on the moon. The now unclassified, almost 300-page investigation contemplated all the scientific and political pros and cons of a hypothetical atomic explosion on the moon. Report, quote, "The study was conducted of various theories of the moon's structure and or a description of the probable nature of the lunar surface is given. The areas discussed in some studies, seismic observations, lunar surface and magnetic fields, magnetic field effects, and organic matter of the moon. And political benefit. The giant mushroom cloud image would imprint itself into the entire, and the Soviet Union would fall behind in the space race. Sputnik and it's like child's play. But the document isn't exactly clear on how to outer space. Considering some of the chapters were cut out or redacted, specifications a rocket would need to carry a bomb to the moon. The report does suggest a missile carrying a nuclear device would be launched from Earth and travel miles to the moon, where it would detonate upon contact. Scientists of a hydrogen bomb, as it would have been too heavy for a missile. The conclusion was a better choice. The weapon would have been at least as large as the one used on Hiroshima. The Air Force scrapped the plan entirely before it was even formal. And although there isn't an official reason why A119 was scrapped, there is plenty. Even if the Air Force had done all the math correctly, there was no absolute way of knowing what could fail. There was also the possibility that bombing the moon would be violence, rather than a show of scientific prowess. The public outrage might have been a powerful reason to stop the project. People said, quote, "It was a PR device, without question, in the minds of the people from the air." The scientists' concern about radioactive contamination from the moon could also have been canceling the program and eliminating the possibility of any future missions with space warhead. In the years that followed, Congress passed two different bills that would further limit. The first one was the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1983. The second was the United Nations Outer Space Treaty in 1967, which America rose as the space race winner almost 10 years later with the icon. On July 20th, 1969, the world watched as Armstrong became the first man to ever set foot on the moon. director at NASA for the Apollo program. Then young graduate Carl Sagan, icon of science, with a television show and several published books. Research flights was designated as classified information and stayed hidden from the public for decades, until the mid-90s, when biographer Kay Davidson found out about the project while researching. The project came into public attention in the year 2000 when the book was published. This led Dr. Rifle to break his anonymity as the project's leader. He gave an interview to the revealed details about America's unusual lunar plan, but didn't specify how the explosion. He said, quote, "Had the project been made public, there's no doubt that had Project A119 been implemented, it would be vastly different. The moon is a source of scientific and artistic inspiration for people, and the thought of it not existing is mind-boggling." According to Vince Museum, the explosion wouldn't even have looked the way the Air Force expected. Instead of a mushroom cloud, the world would have only gotten a flash of bright light. British nuclear historian Dr. David Lowry said about the project, quote, "It is obscene to think that the first contact human beings would have had with another world would have been to explode a nuke. Had they gone ahead, we would never have had the romantic image of Neil Armstrong taking a step for mankind."